Hey guys, in this video, I will show you how all this is done in Unreal Engine 5.5 with combat theory system. You don't need the combat theory system to understand and implement how this camera movement works. Um, and yeah, this will be quite an advanced tutorial. It requires you to, went over all the documentation from Epic Games about the gameplay camera system yourself. Then you need to have a basic understanding of what the directors are, what the new gameplay camera, how it works, and how we can trigger it from our character blueprint to director to the actual different camera rig. So you need to have a basic understanding of the gameplay camera system in order to get into it. I will link a video that is very helpful for you to understand before you start this video. Okay, so one thing about this plugin, one thing about the gameplay camera is that um, this thing, the control rotation, it would bug you. It would cause you some frustration when you are playing around with the system, right? So I can give you one example. So this is the combat finisher, right? So in this case, I have my control rotation frozen uh, during during this camera rig. So when it's playing this when it's using the combat finisher control rig, not control rig, camera rig, um, it will be frozen. So let me give you an example. So this is what it looks like when you have this control rotation set to false at the beginning from the from the global setting, but if I have set it to true, if I let the camera follows the control rotation, you will see this is the outcome. And I would assume that most people would experience the same problem as I do, so I'm just put it out there. My solution is have this ticked. I enjoy having this ticked as long as you are not doing any crazy as camera transition or whatnot, or like rotation, coding blueprint. Always have this ticked. Always have this set it to true. And for the special occasions, for example, the combat finisher, have this auto rotate input 2D plugged in into the boom arm, and make sure that you want to freeze control rotation. And also play around, right? You can play around with these three values. It will give you different I believe it's camera output rotation or whatnot. It doesn't really matter as long as you have it freezed. I think 80% of the outcome is achieved. So as you can see, this is what we wanted. This is very close to what we wanted. And once we get into this, a trigger box here. Once we get into the trigger box, as you can see from the top left corner, there's box in and there's box right. That's a very simple transition using trigger box to switch between a close camera rig to the balanced camera rig, right? And then we step into the top down, right? As you can see right now, we are able to rotate our camera. In some case, you want to rotate your camera. In some case, you don't want to rotate your camera. And in the case of top down, if you don't have where's it at? If you don't have the auto rotation set to true, if you don't have the auto rotation set to true, you would run into troubles. Like for example, if I were to rotate my camera, for example, I rotate to the left side, and when I press W, which I am press W right now, you can see that it's not going to the direction I wanted, right? Because the rotation is not set. The rotation for the camera is not set, right? So for example, right here, I'm pressing W, and the desired outcome is I want the pawn to face face forward, right? To face upward, not like upward, but like face north side. And when I press W, it should run towards north. But in this case, it's not. And yeah, it's out of control, right? So uh and that's another reason you always want this to be the default setting. You always want to have the the control rotation set to automatic, and always set as automatic. And you only want to defile it while you during the camera rig, right? During setting up the camera rig, during the sequence for the camera rig, right? I think this is this is my approach, but I think it works for me. I think it's the greatest approach for now. And another thing I think people hasn't really been talked about is the director. There are a lot of things you can do and play around in the director. So what director does, what camera director does, is that it selects what camera rig to go into. Okay, so of course you can choose, you can make this logic elsewhere, right? But the gameplay camera system is designed in a way that director drives the selection of rigs. So if you were doing the selection in like character blueprint or controller, right? Make sure you do it in the camera director from now on. And we'll go over this simple example. So you will find the owner, then the owner would give the character properties for camera. This is a blueprint that is made in the in our character blueprint. We'll go over it very soon, but bear with me for now. So what it does is that it passes in the camera style, the stance, and also camera mode, right? So and because based on 3 different enums, we're able to select different camera rig based off it, right? So you can see if it's crouching, we give it a crouching offset, right? That's the crouch offset camera rig. We can do more, right? We can do where's it at? Camera. So we have the crouch and offset. Well, we can do more, right? We can do let's do a sequence, right? And child 1, I want to have an offset, and child 2, I want to have a post process, right? For the post process, I wanted to have the I also have the Vignite. Is that what's it called? Vignite, whatever. I'll set it to 1, right? So we can play. When we crouch, you see that even though our animation was slightly delayed, you can see that we have this somewhat darked out post process running in the camera real time, right? So this is where you need to set the in camera VFX or post process setup is in the camera node. That's what's it called, in the camera node, right? So definitely go study post process. This will be extremely this is I mean, okay, so if you know how the post process is normally set up, is that we usually have a post process volume, right? I want to have a post process volume in the level, right? Then I want to have a what's it called, extension, infinite extend, right? I want to have infinite extend. Then I want to for example, let's do it here. Uh, right, let's do this. And no matter where we are, no matter our physical location is in the level, it will always apply, right? But because of the camera, because of the gameplay camera, we're able to move all this into into the camera node in the gameplay camera system. I think this is very it's a way better approach. Another thing that you can do, you can play around is I believe there's a blueprint. There's this thing is I see nobody has talked about this. How we should utilize this, how we can what does it say? Oh, it's not set up, yeah. So we can use the Evaluator 1. How this is used. So currently it only allows you to override an event tick. So if you look for begin, if you look for begin play, if you look for construct, it's not there. So currently the only thing you can play around with is the event tick. And you can for sure have some special effect or I don't know, something going on, some special effects going on. with the event take camera, maybe to like give player pawn. Well, I don't think it's well. Apparently, you can't even like give player pawn. Yeah, apparently you can't even call these functions in the camera node. So, I hope I will for sure dig deeper into this, how we can play around with the blueprint in the camera gameplay camera system. Okay, so how the animation is set up by Combat Fury is that it is driven with AnimNotify. It's driven with AnimNotify. So this is the thing that is controlling the gameplay camera. Well, we can take a look right at the interface for designer. So it has the default offset, default sockets offset, default rotation offset, FOV in terms of speed, and also the desired ones, right? Default and the desired ones. So the desired ones is the final rotation and also the position that we want, and the default one is where we want it to end up being at, right? If that makes sense. So we can take a look. We'll take a look at this. So it has two functionality. One is begin, and one is when it just begun, and one is when it just ended, right? So the first thing, a very big thing, is that we want to take a look at this thing. This is the big function that is driven the camera position and also rotation. When you take a first look at it, you are like, yo, what is this? What are these functionalities? Like, what are these variables and what they are passing to? It's the socket offset, rotation offset, desired FOV, and also the speed, right? And you look at this. Oh, what are these for variables? What do they come from? Take a look at this. So this camera rig is I think we call it the this camera rig is the combat finisher. So let's go to the combat finisher control rig, the camera rig, combat finisher, and we can take a look. We see that there are some exposed variables. There is the boom offset, there's the field view, FOV, field of view, and also you have the rotation offset. Right? How you can do this is that you can you can do this, right? You basically delete it and you drag it out. You can do create a camera parameter, right? So you have to do this in order for the blueprints to read it, if that makes sense. For example, we can do this, right? So this is ultimately this is plugged in here. The whole big function is like it's a wrap, right? It's a wrap on top of this functionality. Is on top of this. This is a gameplay game camera position, right? If we take a look, right? So we call the gameplay cam position, and the gameplay cam position goes into this graph, and this graph is where the magic happens, right? So I'm not going too deep into how the movement, how the speed works out. You can literally chat GPT this, and I'll assume it would output basically the same thing, right? The magic goes on here. So for the camera rig, if I were to choose close aim, the close aim doesn't have the exposed parameters. We can take a look back into the close aim. As we can see, none of the parameters are exposed, right? So what I mean is that if we want to play around, especially drive the gameplay camera system within Blueprint, we need to make sure we are exposing all the parameters that we want to play around with, right? So we want to play around with the boom offset, we want to play with the lens, we want to play with FOV, we want to play with rotation. Therefore, you need to expose them in the camera camera node. And let's get it back to the combat finisher. Let's compile, it's safe, and everything is back to normal again. So this is how you drive it. This is how you drive it in the with using the AnimNotify. Very there's probably like another question you would ask. How do we find which camera to use? So the first thing is that we have this camera gameplay camera component in our character blueprint, and we have in reference point it to the this camera assets that we want to use, right? This brings us to this thing, right? And it has a whole bunch of different entries, right? I assume that's what it is, different entries to the different camera rigs, right? But how do we know when to access which, right? We can take a look. We can take a look how this is done. So in this case, we're using Combat Fury. In the case of Combat Fury, of course, you can still like program, without any framework, and it is supposed to done. It's supposed to be done at least, once or twice, so you understand how the system works, right? So how it's driven, how the camera system is driven in the GASP, in the game animation sample project, is it uses camera style, right? All this come with the sample project. We can take a look. So after 5.5, it is driven by the enums, right? It's using enums instead of a bunch of booleans compared to 5.4, right? This is a much more cleaner way of doing this, as we can see, right? As the camera style, balance, close combat. This alone doesn't drive anything, but we're able to pass this enum value to the director. This is the camera director. Every camera assets, every gameplay camera assets has to have one director. And this is the director we are using, the camera director for the sandbox, right? This is, you can make your own, add the plus, blah, blah, blah. Once you go into it, you will see this thing. This is the new magic here. The magic is that, how do we find all these, camera style, camera mode? How do we know which camera rig we want to use? So the idea, at least from GASP and also from Combat Fury's programmer, is that we want to set all the enums in the CBP, in the character blueprints. Then we want to pass it to the camera directors. Then based on these enums, we choose a different camera rig based on the selection, right? So that's how it's done. And let's see what it is, right? So the first thing is that define evaluation context owner actor. This comes with the plugin. Find evaluation context owner actor. This belongs to gameplay camera component. This comes with the gameplay camera, right? This like Epic Games made this one, and this one is what we made. We had a in Combat Fury we made a BPI. We have interface, right? We run an interface and we set up the interface functionality within the CBP. We can take a look, right? So this is the interface, and we are calling the get property, and it returns the struct. The struct contains three enums. The three enums, which are the camera style, camera mode, and also the stance. Right? We have the stance. The stance is the crouching and normal. Right? That's what it is. And we can take a look how it is approached. Right? Well, first of all, let's run it. Let's see what it actually gives us. Right? So in this case, I want to print out what is this appended. Yep. I want to print out what is actually being processed. Right. Let's just run it. Oh shit. Okay. All right, guys. So we are back. So let's plug everything in. Let's plug it in. Want to compile and also save it. We want to make sure that we output the string after we get the character property, right? After we give this functionality. And we can run it. As we can see, it is the CBP sandbox character is being passed in, right? So we can take a look at it right here. So this thing passed out CBP sandbox character. So what I mean is that you can do the CBP sandbox character as long as your camera rig is running on this class, on the same class as this one, right? I'll save it and let's run again, right? Same thing. I can still do the camera rotation through the blueprint. As you can see, right? It works just as fine. And in our CPP, let's take a look at the interface. We have the DPI gameplay camera interface implemented, right? And this is the functionality call that was called, and it was also implemented in our sandbox character, right? And yeah, this should be it. If you have any frustration of how the camera system is driven and how it should be driven, right? Um, let me know, right? Current approach is that we want to set up whole bunch of which are represented as camera style, camera mode, all these, right? We want to pass these variable in to the camera director, right? The camera director of the camera assets we are using, right? Can go to the director, and yep, this is the director, right? We go to this director and we pass in all the values. In our case, in this case, combat first case, we pass in the struct that contains all the usable, all the useful um camera property into into this functionality. The functionality is event run camera director, right? And yeah, and based on the properties, we set which camera rig we want to use. And this should wrap it up. This should be the part one of the whole guide, advanced guide. And for the part two, I will be diving deep into cinematic, and also how to do the seamless transition and many more. Right? I want to play around level sequence. I want to sequencer, right? I want to play around sequence. I want to see how we can swap between traditional camera with the gameplay camera, and we're gonna see more if there are more cons and pros while utilizing the gameplay camera actor instead of a traditional one, right? But as we can see for now, as long as you know how the whole workflow works, I do think it is well, it simplified a lot of things, right? It's especially the transition. And yeah, let me know if you have any question, and this will be it for now. I will see you in the next one.